Recording is on.
Good evening, everyone. Like I stated in past couple videos, we're going to be doing at least once a month something different. Something that's non-political. All right, Bree. But yet alone, something that stays on the concept and ideas of, still making you think and question things. There's a lot of urban and folk legend, myth, lore, paranormal stuff that's historically based as well. Try to keep some as much of the occult side of things in out of it as much as possible. But like I said, there's also, I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I do want to do the George Washington prophecies. That's something I've studied, researched. I just want to refamiliarize myself with it before I actually do a podcast on it. But it is an interesting thing to discuss, and I plan on doing it within the next couple of months. There's all kinds of things to talk about, from Bigfoot, Nephilims, Native American folklore. Love it. Rich in history. The Aztecs and Incas when it comes to the United States, as we've discovered. We've even discovered in the Grand Canyons Egyptian artifacts, Egyptian hieroglyphs, weapons. So there's a whole realm of things we can discuss, including we can get into the MK Ultra, how the CIA and FBI use psychics, and their delve and instrumental work in using a pseudoscience, so to speak, more of a paranormal occult side of things that they've used. And yes, we have our classic, I'm not a big fan, but nothing's off the table, so I'm sure there could be some talk of some ETs, and in fact, I know there'll be a little talk of ETs, UFOs, and stuff like that. Like I said, this is more just to have fun, a break from the politics, a break from everything that's going on that we're just tired of. We need an escape. And this is, at least once a month, this is going to be my escape, because I do enjoy doing these. I used to do paranormal research and investigation. I've gotten away from it. It's always drawn, there's always that, push to go back. And I don't know. I have not decided. There's one spot that will bring me back if I ever get the permission. Every year I try to get a permission to go do an investigation, a 2-night investigation at the place. One of these times, they'll say yes. I mean, they got to deal with park ranger, and I don't know. In that area, they're just a little bit funny about it. I mean, let's talk. You got serpent mounds here in Ohio, and the place I'm talking about research is in Ohio too. Doing an investigation. It's actually probably about 10-minute drive from my house. Okay. Give me 1 second while I shoot her a link. I'm going to have to do it through Twitter. Just so you know, Bree, you could have actually just went to the mines, to the group, and jumped in. this connects to both our phones. We have the same group on our phones, and Sons and Daughters of Liberty's group via the gathering over there. So we're actually connected to all of them. So anybody that's actually got a link to that room could actually access this when I'm actually on the website streaming from there, which is, like I said, I've been using Jitsi for a while, and I didn't realize that they actually had a place where anybody can go. I mean, it's amazing. I can record as I'm doing the stream. It's being recorded. I can now add a separate room for when I have callers call in to wait so we can screen them. So we don't have what we've had in the past where somebody just comes in and tries to get the stream shut down for saying stupid things. So I'm very happy with the setup now. And I mean, it's simple, easy. I can share screens. It's what I'm looking for and want. I don't have to deal with the constant headaches of setting up OBS whenever I change. Even though I've got it already set up with my different screens. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to save this link. I completely forgot about this one.
I'm loving it.
I had issues, just so you know. I had to completely reboot my router and my computer, both, not once, but 3 times, and my phone to even begin. And I'm still having issues with your last stream. It'll only play for about 90 seconds and then it shuts off.
I had issues with my last stream. So I haven't even went back to look at it. But there was I got on a subject, started talking about a certain subject, and everything went nuts. It started buffering, but according to the statistics over here, I'm streaming perfectly. I even did a speed test while I was doing it. I got Spectrum. I got high speed internet.
Yeah,
I should not have the issues I was having. That's like I said. You know what? I already had plans to do this podcast. It is what it is. I'll go back maybe tomorrow
or later tonight. I just wanted to give you the 411 on that, and it's weird that you would bring up this topic because I had a phone call this morning very early. Somebody was talking about stuff along this vein of urban legend, and I was like, interesting. And I was like, you just pay attention, watch places that I usually post. You never know what I may pop off about, or person I usually end up co-hosting with. He's always a good one to talk about stuff like that. So pay attention. And yeah, it's a great night, to get away from all this political.
Yeah, I actually had to get off Twitter because I came across the tweet that just got my blood boiling, and it would have been I'd get kicked off. I probably got it kicked off Twitter and YouTube because but that's not here and that's not there. We'll discuss that some other time.
We're gonna.
Me and you'll discuss that in the back room when we're done because
yeah,
I don't play when they start messing with our first responders.
Exactly.
I mean, actually, we will even talk about AI and technology within this stuff because that falls under these encompassing realms.
Yes, it does.
Like I said, I've been looking forward to do this. I've tried it once before over here. I don't know. I have a hard time. I try to not bring KOTR stuff over here.
Well,
but this is something that I know I can do. because it's, like I said, I mean, we've had talks. Me, you, and Hunter had some great. He brought it up. He's the one that actually was like, man, I need to, because I remember during COVID, because I usually do. The last one I did on these was a couple years ago over here, and it was for Halloween. But I was going to do one during COVID about masks, the symbology and the legends of masks, what they were used for.
Yep. And you can actually go back even farther. Um, I mean, it's the mythology and the folklore on masks goes back so far. Um, the the medicine men and medicine women in virtually every culture, um going back, from as soon as we became hunter gatherer societies, um used certain herbs and certain plants. Like, you go to certain museums, you'll see those elongated beaks on some masks, where they would put certain um fragrances and certain spices into the masks to ward off specific illnesses,
They were most commonly used for during like the plague.
Yep.
They were used here in the United States during the smallpox and tuberculosis outbreaks, especially in like the East Coast, like in West Virginia, some of the towns, and Ohio. There's some towns in southern central Ohio that they've been discovered, even here in Indiana. So
All
that, yeah,
throughout Wisconsin, all throughout, any of the river corridors, is where you will find these mass migrations of the hunter gatherer society. You're going to find these masks are there. It's a matter of, have the state antiquities departments said, are these a threat to, quote unquote, um, society, for public viewing? Yes or no? And that has what is really where this all comes down to. And you know, the irony is I don't believe that they are, but who am I? I'm just Jane Q Public, that has a very loud voice, that is not afraid, and cannot be silenced, quite frankly.
I
That
mean
it's
the
been tried, but you know,
I mean the horror stories of just the urban legends and folklores of the medical society, the insane asylums. I mean,
well, what it is, you brought up a good point, or a good topic. The tuberculosis um hospitals. Wisconsin had they had three that were primary, and they today all three of them. There's only two left standing, but they use them now as the state mental hospitals now,
I'm gonna
rather
step
than,
away for a second.
okay. And this is very common in most states, that what was once used as the the tuberculosis hospitals, is now used as either a state mental institution, or the buildings themselves have been completely tore down and removed, so that people don't know what has actually happened there, unless there's people like me who absolutely know the history. I mean, there's a couple of channels out there that actually travel the world, exposing the truth about some of these tuberculosis hospitals throughout the entire world, really. And some of these places, the stories of how they treated some of these patients is just short of um, grotesque and um, my God, if
That's what
they
I
were,
just said.
hmm,
That's what I just said.
it's it's beyond barbaric.
Oh my god.
Um, I mean, they would shove hockey pucks in people's mouths, legitimate full size hockey pucks in people's mouths just to make them be quiet because of what the tuberculosis was doing. And they were doing this in Wisconsin. So, and in Wisconsin, they were doing this in the winter, and these facilities, they weren't heated very well. They had a boiler system, but they were far from heated very well at all. And that, fortunately, with today's technology, things have gotten a lot better. But the interesting thing was maybe one of Wisconsin's. Um, I hate to even mention or even give the individual's name any kind of power nor notoriety, but Ed Gein, it was believed that he and his brother both um, possibly may have both had at one point in life had tuberculosis, which is possibly what drove Ed Gein over the edge. Do I believe that that is a legitimate probability? Because, well, Ed Gein died at Mendota Mental Health Institute in Madison, Wisconsin, because uh, he was found mentally unstable for trial. So, will we ever know if he actually had tuberculosis? No, we won't. Um, but there's been a few other people throughout our generation and in our time that is it possible that maybe they didn't get the TB shot as a kid and could have actually had TB and drove them over the edge? Thoughts?
Well, yeah, most definitely. I mean, let's keep it real. We still get tested. People are still being tested today for TB. We never eradicated TB.
My, perfect case. My one of my very best friends. He's a medic. Well, he was a medic. He's retired now, 25 years. He actually tested positive uh, for TB after taking care of treating a patient who had TB.
Oh
And
yeah.
and you know what they rather than the conventional treatment that they normally use, just to give you an idea of where we're at with today's medicine. Do you know what his doctor told him as a better alternative to today's barbaric, still to this day, in 23? Do you know what they told him to do in order to basically kill TB, and just to stave it off, to keep the disease in check? Do you know what his doctor told him to do every day for the rest of his life? Do you know
Uh-uh.
what? Have a shot of Jaeger or something in that vein and in that proof every single day for the rest of his life. A shot of alcohol, the proof of Jaeger, or in that vein.
Well, I know people. Especially in the Appalachians. Man, they still keep a mason jar in their cupboards. That's their medicine. They keep a
I,
separate mason jar aside that's straight gunfire.
yeah,
I mean, it's the highest proof they can get from the
that,
shine,
yeah.
and that's their medicine. And trust, and tell you what, I remember 'cause I used to every summer. If I catch a cold right before spring and I can't get rid of it, I would have that cold all summer long, and it
Yep.
was basically something like strep and the whooping cough. I couldn't
Yep.
stop coughing. Well,
Yep.
one day my grandmother's like, "I got something for you."
Yep.
She poured, got in the cupboard, pulled out a bottle of old Dan Tucker,
Yep.
put some honey in a shot glass, poured me a shot, drink that, and after that, I I never had it. It went away within 2 days. Of course, I got sick that day. I decided afterwards to eat some strawberry shortcake. I mean, a whole big bowl of strawberry shortcake, followed up by some Doritos, and yeah, no, that. But that was actually the first time believe it or not. No, it wasn't. I drank it. I had real liquor in Brazil, so never mind.
Yeah, it's and I because of my heritage coming out of the Blue Ridge Mountains, Kentucky, you know, it's that same uh medicine. I keep it. I and I'll be the first to admit, when I had the uh and not once, not twice, but three times. Apparently, because once is just never enough. I had to get it three times. Over the last 3 years. You know, um, actually closer to four now. Um, but that's how I cured it. I didn't just cure the dang bug. I killed it in 5 days. Well, the first time it took 21 days because, well, apparently the bug was just that virulent. But you get the point. I keep a jar of 185 that is specific, and it's labeled medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And that recipe for that specific strain goes back literally to the very founding days of our nation's history. It literally goes back to our founding father.
I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to get into a little bit of history aspects of especially like urban legends and folklores of things. I'm from Ohio. Granted, my family originated. If we go clear back to my founding father, John Rutledge, he was from South Carolina. He was president of South Carolina, and we all know that aspect. But we also know there was a great push by George Washington and many of the founding fathers to get land in the Ohio Valley. It was the hub for really, truthfully, the hub for almost every native tribe had spent time or visited the Ohio Valley. It is so rich with folklore and legends and myths, clear down to the Native Americans, where one of their biggest battles with, this is my personal opinion, why our government worked so hard at eradicating and getting rid of the Native Americans was because the knowledge that they had, the knowledge of the Aztecs, the knowledge of the giants, the Nephilim, and I've sat down and had lengthy discussions and talks with elders from the several Native American tribes on the very topics of the giants, the Nephilim. And we know there's been bones found here in Ohio, or in Ohio. We've got nobody really knows what's in the Serpent Mounds.
We
We
have
also know.
those exact same mounds here. Well, Wisconsin, not so much the Serpent Mounds, but in Northeast Iowa, we actually have five different identified serpent mounds. Now I'm going to send something to you in the side chat in Jitsi, but this will be directly relevant to what why the push into the Ohio River Valley. And when you see the name, it's going to make you scratch your head. But I'm wording it this way for a specific reason. It is the Native American name of what was grown in the Ohio River Valley at that time.
I'm familiar with that term. And
Okay,
when it
do
comes to
you
the
want me to
Native
just
American,
say it? Do you want
yeah,
me to
go ahead.
Maize. It is the Native American term called corn. The quality and the potency of the corn. It is the proteins within the corn was so high in yield that the medicinal properties of the corn was so high at that time that it's one of the many reasons why they were being driven to come that far west. And it's there's very few parcels of property left, it literally in the world, but there's only very few fields left that is producing that same strain of corn that goes back over 250 years now, that it's still able to match that same level of protein and caloric density that the corn of versus today versus the maize, i.e., corn that was being grown in the Ohio River Valley more than 250 years ago. Now, only in a very, very few spaces and places, and it's those property owners know very well what they have. Unfortunately,
I could
you know,
take you to the farms that grow it right now.
but
They're not that far from my house. They're not
right.
far from the racetrack where I go racing.
Oh,
I mean,
I,
where I live in Northwest Ohio, I don't care. It's been over 100 years now, since well over 100 years since Native Americans roamed the Ohio Valley, and we're talking about every tribe. You got to understand the geographics of Ohio. You have the St. Joseph River, or St. John, St. Joseph River that runs all the way to Canada, through the Ohio Valley, all the way down to Florida.
and it's a violent river.
It
It,
can be
it,
in certain areas.
it,
I've actually kayaked some of it.
it's for lack of a better term, the Ohio and the St. Joseph's, it is as a former diver.
Well, here's another thing for you. Can you tell me which direction the St. Joseph River flows?
It actually flows in reverse.
Yep, it flows.
It flows um, south to north. It is one of the very few rivers in the world that actually flows in the reverse direction. But it is also a lot of people say, oh, the Mississippi, it's one of the most dangerous. The Ohio is probably it, when you look at the complexities of these rivers, you have to understand the geographical anomalies and the geographical forces of these regions to understand uh, what is actually going on in these regions. But the Ohio and the St. Joseph's in particular tend to claim more divers' lives every year than any other rivers. Um, it's I'm not. Um,
Well, I mean, look at the phenomena we do have within the tri-state area of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. You have the Great Lakes has their own version of the Bermuda Triangle. There's been some interesting stuff discovered in certain parts of Michigan that, I mean, like a Stonehenge that's underwater. I mean, there's some interesting things when we start talking about this, and we do see, like I said, when we're talking about our history of the founding of our country, there was a big push for a lot of them, and it's just not. And I don't think it was just about the maize either. There's, just from talking to Native American, the spiritual aspect of what they considered Ohio. Well, me and you discussed, Ohio is not. The people think the Ohio is what you said, Pawnee.
yes, the Pawnee.
Well, it's actually
Well,
not.
the Pawnee, the Shawnee, the Blackfoot.
But the Mohicans.
Yep.
But it's actually the name Ohio is not a native word.
No, it is not.
It's actually it's called it's Enochian.
Yep.
Which stands for the land of woe.
And what a lot of people don't understand it is, you hear the woe. Okay, well, now we're going to take this into the urban folklore end of things. You hear the term in the Bigfoot community of whoops, and the Ohio, what is commonly referred to as the Ohio call. Well, you have to understand that the whole of the sum here around that mythology. But in order to understand that, you have to understand the land of woe, and the not just the geological, but the geothermal upflows that come out of certain pockets that move for unexplainable reasons. You and I have talked on at different times about in the back rooms about these, for lack of a better term, these sonic booms that seem to be happening in at different times and in different places that are truly unexplained. Therefore, it would fall into that urban folklore and or urban legend, that are coming from very deep in the earth, and thus making it actually creates a sonic boom. Now, what is very interesting is these tend to be being reported usually between Thanksgiving and Ishtar or Easter. It is usually when we're hearing the most of sorry, is when we're hearing most of these. Well, in the northern portions of the United States, well, the earth is very cold. So the tectonic plates are going to be shifting a little bit, and it's going to create a different geomagnetic sound. And at a certain point, those tectonic plates are going to shift enough that it will create these anomalous booms. That I guess it is maybe the only logical explanation that I can tell people.
I mean, they're for the longest. I mean, when I was growing up, it's not so much now, but when I was growing up with my dad and stuff, for the longest, Ohio used to be UFO Central.
Oh yeah, and it you
It's
know.
not so much anymore, but I mean, I like I said, I'm not a fan of the UFO thing.
All right, well let me.
But I did have my own experience to where there was like I was coming home from work one night. I was out on 20A, coming from Wasion, going towards West Unity, in a small little blip of a town called Burlington, and semi was pulled over, a couple cars was pulled over, and I'm look up, just have to look out the driver's side window, and I see this triangle hovering above the field. It's towards winter because the field's been it wasn't plowed yet, but it was been cut. Everything corn was already combined, and we all got out of our. I pulled her. We all got out of our cars and watched this thing for a good 10 minutes. People were pulling over. Well, we didn't have our cell phones back in, 90s. The cell phones we had were big, bulky, and
Yep.
take pictures with. But then all of a sudden it just shot straight up in the air, and in a blink of an eye, it was gone. But it went in a direction to the spot that I was talking about, where I do plan on. It's on my bucket list till this day to do a paranormal investigation there. And I know it's on your bucket list.
Yeah, it is. But all right.
We also know it's on Josh Gates' bucket list.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm gonna spin this. I'm gonna spin this conversation 180 degrees on its face.
Oh, one more thing. But what's the other important facility? You might as well say it's the second Area 51.
Right, Patterson.
Right, Pat, in Ohio. Right, Dayton, Ohio.
Okay, but so I'm gonna spin this, in because anytime you mention right, Pat, now you're starting to go back into that political ish spectrum, and I have to be very careful there. I've already been warned twice today to have a cup of shut that up.
I think I got my warning earlier today.
But no, I got a very direct, and it was not a polite manner. But so I'm going to spin this conversation 180 degrees on its face.
Oh, I don't want to talk about right, Pat. Anyway.
I'm good because I don't either. But I'm going to spin this 180 degrees on its face. And this is something because I've had UFO experiences. I have experienced time loss, legitimate.
That I've experienced. I've experienced the time loss thing, but it has nothing to do with that. Anything to do with UFOs or stuff. But and I actually that's the one spot I would warn you and Josh Gates about. That spot is notorious for time loops.
Well, it's
and lost time.
Some of the things that I'm going to go on the record with tonight, I have never went on record about.
Maybe if we stop buffering.
And well, first time for everything, I guess. I'm going to go on record as something that I've never on any platform with anybody. I have had time loss issues directly surrounding ufology. But one of the things that I have had vehement literal visceral arguments with the whole, and this is the problem with, yeah, you're fine on my end.
Okay, this must be mine.
But it's the problems that I have is when you're dealing with anywhere in this genre is you have the very staunch believers in ufology, and then you have the Bigfoot people. They're on one end. You have the UFO people on the other end, and
then you got people like me because you guys haven't heard my side of the Bigfoot story,
right?
Yet.
But here's my thoughts, and this is based on my own personal experiences, because I have had experiences with both, and the very interesting. And I don't know if this is just geologically because of where I live, Um, but I've experienced this in a few different areas. So this has nothing to do with area of location that I live in, but it's very interesting that prior to Bigfoot experiences, and I've had a few um, pretty significant experiences in the Wisconsin, the upper Mississippi, Wisconsin River Delta. Um, that prior to a Bigfoot encounter, there was a that bright light type. Uh, I hate to use the term orb appear, and then within a minute to 3 minutes later, a Bigfoot esque type being emerges. So, is there a direct correlation between Bigfoot and the bright light from above? Are they? Is there a direct correlation? Is there that outside possibility that they could act, because we have not yet found actual legitimate remains.
We never will.
No, we won't. Are they interdimensional? Um, these are all questions that I've asked. Now I
Well,
have
let
been
me pose this one to you,
all right.
and you guys can get my general idea of this concept of this and my thoughts. This is why I don't hold no credit to the UFO and ET thing, because me and you kind of discussed this the other night. With the you remember brought up, why is it a certain time period? Why was it written in Sanskrit? Well, because of the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's where we first get, because we talk about Enochian and Anunnaki, and we're basically Nephilims. That's what we're talking about, Nephilims. This is actually where I'm going with this, is with the Nephilims. I've heard enough, sat down and had enough discussions with these elders, plus my own study into Enochian and Anunnaki, to basically come to the conclusion that we all know, especially from the biblical sense, you got to take everything. That's the key important. That's why I want to do this type of content at least once a month on here, because it gets you stuck, gets you stop thinking about just one-sided. There's so many stories. You have your written stories. You have the stories like I got to experience sitting down with all these Native American elders.
Beautiful, beautiful stories. But that is actually how oral tradition.
Right. I mean, it's just like
and oral
what people know about John Rutledge. I know a lot more and a lot different, because I've got to read his journals, his writings. I've got to hear the stories that were passed down through the family, which doesn't equate to what is necessarily written about him. So you got to take everything. You got to even take the science. You got to be able to sit there and or I don't got my teeth in, so sort of certain words I can't pronounce. Sift through everything to get the truth, because it's scattered.
Well, I'm going to throw one thing at you.
Well, let me finish my before I get sidetracked. I'm very easy to sidetrack. But my theory is, and it's quite simple, Nephilim created the race of giants. So why not the race of giants and the Nephilim? What we are dealing with when we talk about Bigfoot, when we talk about ETs, extraterrestrials, and I'm going to use the extraterrestrial sense as the biblical sense from the Dead Sea Scrolls, because that's when everybody started talking about UFOs. These fiery chariots coming down from the sky, the Egyptian gods, giants. In the Bible, they talk about this civilization that was just feared, and from what I was able, because there's not much, and it's hard to research that aspect of it. But from what I was able to gain, it was one of the descendants of the giants, which we know the Nephilim, fallen angels, were mated with the humans, created the Nephilims, which was the race of giants. So what we're dealing with, I think, and it explains a lot when you're talking about Bigfoot, how you just can never see them, you can't find them, how they just disappear. I can see that. We can also see it through some of the writings and hieroglyphs of the Aztecs, Incas, of the Native Americans, the Bigfoot, Shawnee, Blackfoot, Apache. They all have these certain topics, clear down to when we start getting into the skinwalkers. Are we dealing with descendants of Nephilim? That's the question I pose that nobody asks, nobody talks about when it comes to the Bigfoot community, when it comes to the UFO communities or the occult communities. They just want to, they just stop it right where their beliefs are, and they don't go further into it. They don't see the correlations of all these different stories from these different cultures, from the Native Americans to the frontiersmen and women, stuff that's been passed down. It gives you a whole new perspective and the way to look at things. All right, now you go. Now you sidetrack me.
Now, it's, not many people have, and it's very sad that a lot of people don't take the time. And I don't think it's that they don't take the time, but, you know, we have a library of quote unquote Congress for a reason. And granted, some of the things that are
Don't get me
in,
started on the restricted sections.
um, there are some areas that um, it's, and I've been all through. It every time I go out to the east, I try to spend as much time as possible there because it is history. I am a history junkie. And in order to not continue to make the same mistakes as those who walked before us, it, as somebody who i- is a strategist and whatnot, it is incumbent upon me to always be be looking forever forward. I say sempre avante for a lot of reasons, but I also have to be looking at those who have walked before me
It's important.
and understand where their follies went awry. And sometimes those follies, though very painful to read and very painful to sit there and take in, it is essential to the furtherance of humanity on every level, be it philosophical, emotional, spiritual, personal development, every area of life. It is essential that we take that time. And because we are coming into that that time of the year. Sorry, I got to turn my heat down, or I'm just going to get roasted out of my office. Um, we're not that far away from powwow season again. We're only just a couple of months away, once again, from powwow season. And it is time once again. But unfortunately, the elders that were there perhaps last year, a lot of them won't be there this year.
No.
And so, and a lot of people, when they're driving around their communities, wherever that is, um, they see an old folks home or whatever, they just dismiss it and they just mash their foot on the gas and they keep motoring on. But folks, that's where our a lot of our urban and our history, some of it actually can be classified as urban legend. Some of it folklore. Some of it is sheer conjecture, at the very best. But that is truly where we absolutely have to be looking and thinking, because you know unfortunately you and I, there's only 5 years difference between you and I, but
God, it's
sadly,
nice to be young.
gee, thanks, make me feel old. But sadly, you know we grew up in a culture, and for whoever finds this podcast 100 years down the road, you know,
Oh my God, if they're listening to this 100 years down the road, I feel bad for them.
right? But sadly, we're in a culture that, um, you know, our parents, and both my parents are gone. My mom, I'm told, marched on DC and was part of the bra burning protest. My God, how archaic does that sound like today? How trivial does that sound by today's standard? Bra burning in DC.
I mean,
You
there was
know,
a lot of great civil rights movements
but
that happened in DC that most people have forgotten, don't even realize happened. That's one of them, because I had completely forgotten. I actually learned that in history class.
right,
I have completely forgotten about that one.
but I mean that's um when you stop and think about things like that, you know, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, that ain't even going to be taught. That ain't even going to be a blip on the radar of where this country was at.
No, and you're actually
It,
right. That's the downside of society is advanced as we get more technologically advanced.
it's beyond that. It's we have actually, our generation, sad to say, our generation,
Our
our age,
generation slowly becoming the urban and folk legends of past.
our generation, though we are the generation that created the technology, that we're like,
Man, I'm a skeptic on that one.
we it, our parents are largely, our parents generation is largely in part, our parents generation is largely in part, responsible for the technology that we have today, but we fostered the evolution thereof, of where it's at today, and how far it actually has come. But it is
No, we're the generation that dropped the ball on
well,
that.
that too, but it is also our generation, and it is our fault for allowing the, not just the physical, but now the literal book burning to have become just that. It has become literal. You know, the term book burning
Very true.
started in the 40s, our grandparents' age. book burning started.
Oh, it started way before then. I
But
can go out throughout each empire that conquered. They did it.
I mean, it really took off in the 40s.
No, it didn't take off. It's been happening for since the founding of a hamlet, and
But
they
I
decided to conquer the next hamlet. And well, we don't need them to be. We need them to be educated in our ways. We need them to forget their legends, their beliefs, their folklore.
but
So they eradicated. They kept just the parts that could build upon their society with what they deemed was worthy enough and good enough to make them superior, and they made sure the rest disappeared. I mean, I can go clear back to our dynasties are wrong for Egypt. They found archaeologists found that out already, where pharaohs rewrote over or erased and wrote over the dynasties. So
right,
our whole timeline in the dynasty is completely off and wrong.
but there was things
Erasing of
really,
history. So book burning has been happening for millennia.
but things really went to a whole nother level, starting
No, they didn't. Look what Alexander the Great did.
no, he there wasn't nothing great about that man.
I mean, the stuff that he destroyed didn't deem worthy enough for his library is forever lost to history. That was probably one of the greatest book burnings to ever take place that made what Hitler did look like child's play.
I could agree with that to a point. However, it was the global aspect of what Germany and that whole group that was with Germany really fostered in World War II that really brought things home to America. And that term book burning really took hold, but it's been in our generation where we literally, we didn't just drop the ball, we shot the damn thing repetitively, and we did nothing to undo, except for a few of us, that have tried to undo
well, look at the analogy of what we grew up with, and several generations have grown up with after Gen X, the millennials, and a couple of them. What's on the web is always will be forever on the web. We know that not to be true.
Yeah.
They're even now deleting the stuff that was put in the archives to be protected and never could always be found. We've seen it. We've documented it where it's been removed.
I have so many things that I've actually put up in place.
That's not a urban legend or a folklore anymore.
No, it's I've put things up in the Wayback, and on archives. In fact, actually, I was notified today that my both of my archive .org pages that I had that were not, some of it was podcast orientated, and some of it was from my musical stuff. Both pages have been eradicated, not just removed, they have been eradicated. And it's not because of inactivity, completely eradicated. That's digital book burning.
Oh yeah, I mean, I like I said, I know. I'm not gonna name his name, but when it comes to talking about especially certain things from Ohio folklore and legend, well, I mean, he's a direct descendant of the guy that they basically made Project Blue Book after.
If there was
but the find that they found that we've talked about in the back rooms, and I'm not going to discuss it any further than that because I gave my word I wouldn't. But the shit that they found and that was forced to be covered up in my own fucking backyard, so to speak, it, it's it's why I want to talk about these things, because it's there. You know, my one friend, he always says, you want to know what you want to know you want to know what technology and advancement other cultures and people had in society before you. All you got to do is grab a shovel and dig.
Yep, yep. You know, and that is a topic um as dangerous.
I mean, I think the in the last 7 years, the one thing that blew my mind. Everybody remembers the Orwell Dam, right?
Yep.
Well, here's what I didn't know, and I, I don't like giving people dropping people's name, but I give credit where credit's due, and I still follow him. I enjoy some of the stuff he does. Enter the Stars.
Um, are you aware?
Recording is on. Streaming is on.
Okay, we're back.
Um,
Well, kind of.
if
Okay, we're back now.
the there's an individual that actually lived at Oroville who documented everything that happened at the Oroville Dam. Literally documented everything. He hasn't been seen. Literally has not been seen in any way. All of his phone has went completely dark. Even his vehicle's GPS has went dark. Now I know what kind of vehicle he had. Everything.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
And he documented everything from the very beginning of the Orville catastrophe that happened, and your urban.
Don't ask.
Okay, that was weird. But I mean, it was.
No, what's weird is I can't see this background, nor can I see my video. How I'm sitting above you
Yeah,
over on Jitsi. It's
that's
like I'm not even there, so I don't know.
and your chat the urban chat the urban your picture that you made, that's a wild logo. That's like all that's doing is just like flashing.
Yeah, I
Like
know.
that's weird. But um
But
I
I'm
can't,
buffering, so now I can't see anything.
it is so weird that the individual that first began to cover everything with his phone at the very beginning of the Orville on the Feather River, all of his stuff, everything, his vehicle GPS stuff, everything has went completely offline. His phone, all of his banking stuff, everything has frozen. Nobody knows where he's at.
Hey, you might want to hold up for a second.
Uh,
'Cause I don't know if we're coming in at all. I'm getting an error message, and I'm not sure what's going on now.
we're live. I can see that.
Is it buffering on your end?
No. I
Okay,
checked
because
my phone.
I've got this weird message going on. Like I said, we'll just keep going then.
I mean, it's bizarre. You want to talk about some strange stuff? As soon as we start talking about the Orville Dam, um, the Orville Reservoir, that's man-made, but it's what was. Oh, now it's straight. Now it's fixed itself. Well, it was fixed. Now it's flashing again, but it's what was covering the Orville. What had been there prior to the creation of the Oroville Dam and the historical relevancy of what was there before. And you want to talk about legitimate urban history and how much gold was actually found at Oroville, um, you can't measure the amount of gold that was found at Oroville on the Feather River. You can't. They don't make a even these ocean going cargo vessels could not hold the amount of gold and ore that was pulled out of the ground at just at Oroville. Not many people know or realize that an entire town was flooded in order to create the reservoir above the dam on the Feather. An entire town was flooded out. I'm talking roads. We're talking cemeteries. An entire civilization was wiped out. And I think we lost live streaming.
Did we?
I just heard a
No, that was me. I
Oh,
joined in from my phone,
oh, okay.
trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Oh, okay. That was weird. But you know, an entire civilization that had been there for 250, 300 years was flooded out in order to create the Oroville Reservoir and dam. So you want to talk about urban folklore and legends?
Well, good, because I'm about to blow your mind then. All you said is true, very true. And this is after doing a lot of research. And then, like I said, all credit for this goes to Enter the Stars. What I'm about to say.
Phenomenal
He-
channel.
He was able to, because he's big into he's a huge Christian.
Yes, he is, and very unapologetic about it too.
Doesn't need to be, but he's also open-minded, to
Right.
the most part. But he's big into biblical research and finding places. Oroville Dam is the Sullivan Mines.
Yeah.
Owned by Queen Bathsheba, and he actually starts pointing out places around that area and matching up their biblical names to
Yep.
what they were known during that time period. So that's why there's so much gold in Oroville. That's why they put that dam up there so nobody could get to it anymore.
Or keyword, or there's a reason why it was named Orville,
Mhm.
because of the rich ore, and it wasn't just gold.
Oh no!
The richest silver that has ever been found on the planet came out of the Orville area. The very highest quality gold that had ever been found in what we know of California was found off the Feather River.
Yep. Most people think the Mayflower, Christopher Columbus, and them, they were the first ones here. We know that's not true. We know the Vikings were here before that. But now, we also know that the Egyptians were here. In archaeology, we can go back to the pharaohs and Egypt. They said they never came this far east. Or
Well,
we now know for a fact they did because of the cocaine mummies.
Well, the cocaine mummy.
Plural. There's more than one.
We knew for a fact that the Phoenicians were here more than 300 years pre the Erickson expedition. 300 years. We know this for a fact. And we know that the dating on the cocaine mummies predates that expedition by as much as I think it's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 years, somewhere in that proximity. If I remember reading the report right, I could be off a little bit on that, but I have seen too many different reports, and now I'm seeing reports that another Egyptian mummy has been thawed out in northern BC, Egyptian style wrappings that had a bacteria more than 4,700 years old. They thawed out a 4,700-year-old bacteria from a mummy that had Egyptian style mummification procedures done. What are we? What kind of uh, things are? And it was not the Canadian authorities that found this, by the way. It was actually American authorities that unearthed this. Um, and it was allowed to be brought back to the United States, by the way. So what kind of biological um, cocktail are we facing that's more than 4,700 years old? Um, that was unearthed, and this was unearthed about 90 days ago.
Well, I mean, that is the danger to archaeology. When you start digging and you start unearthing stuff, you have a chance to reintroduce something that's been laying dormant, because we know most bacteria, they never die.
But you know what's
sort of
interesting?
incineration.
You know what's interesting? You know, we seen what happened to the party that unearthed King Tut's tomb. We saw what happened to them.
Yeah,
well,
they're all dead.
You know what's interesting is over 80% of this excavation party. Guess what?
Probably the same thing. I mean, like I said, you don't. I mean, it's just like doing paranormal investigations. You don't know what you're going to be bringing home with you.
They found this sarcophagus, and that's exactly what it was termed as. They found it more than 47 feet below the permafrost. 47 feet below the permafrost line.
Well, see, now my only question is, what the hell was they digging that deep for to begin with?
The only way, now I understand.
Because you LiDAR, even your seismic scanners and sonic scanners can't penetrate that deep. So why were they digging that deep in the first place?
The only way that I can unlock some of that myth for you, and how this could have been found. You're correct. LiDAR, there's no way LiDAR.
Ground pounding radar, they can't go that far down.
LiDAR, actually, yes.
No, it can't. I've used it.
Sonic impulse.
Can't penetrate down that far.
Yes, it can. Sonic can actually go down to bedrock.
I've got to use those toys, and no, they cannot. They cannot even give an accurate reading that far down.
The sonic drilling, because they've actually.
If you're drilling, yeah, but that goes back to my point. Why was you digging that far? Because there's nothing that would give them any reason to go down that far.
What was the technique that was used is the exact same technique that was used on Oak Island. Sonic drilling. It is the technique that was used. However, it's my belief that just as a lot of it
goes back to my original question. Why were they digging in that area, in that spot, going down that far? Because that shit's expensive. we're talking millions of dollars to get the rig out there and go down there. So they were specifically targeting that area. What was in that area?
There was one of the there was a few years ago, there was a a press release, and there's actually, it came out in a TV show about a lot of the offshore treasure hunters, and there have been a whole lot of star maps that was by one of the astronauts from the Gemini program. So Gemini is going to take you back a few years. That have been targeting and looking at a lot of these sunken ships off the surrounding the entire world, and identifying locations of sunken ships from more than 100 years ago that people had completely forgotten about, and I literally identifying within plus or minus 3 feet of literal GPS locations. Now, in order to do that, you're having to use pretty sophisticated equipment. Now, the Gemini project, that software was not, it was good, but it was not that specific. So they're using satellites in space that is capable of seeing things so much farther and so much deeper. And if that's the case, then why have they not found other things that are far more pressing and far more relevant, where human lives are absolutely at stake? And you know where I'm going with this.
Well, I mean, yeah, it goes back to, I don't want to go politics.
Right. But I mean, if they have the capacity to go look for things like um, something that is 47 feet below the permafrost line. Now, permafrost line in Canada, you're talking 107 feet, roughly at 90 days ago. Literally 107 feet below below the permafrost at 90 days ago. You're having to go that deep. You're going to need satellite technology for that. That's the only way that you're going to legitimately be able to see what lays below the solid ground. And is this something that Starlink possibly could have been used for? Again, you're starting to cross over into the political realm. Or is it folklore?
I mean, it is folklore, because it goes back to my point. Why were they digging in that spot to begin with?
Right.
What
right.
drew them there? Obviously, they had some information that something was there. As I've mentioned, especially when we start dealing with these giant sarcophagus that are giant.
The sarcophagus in question,
they disappear.
It's never been put on. It was never photographed. At least the photograph has never been released.
Oh, it's been photographed and documented, but it never gets released.
It's from what I've been able to gather. It was under 7 foot, which most Egyptians were under, well under the 6 foot, even with their ceremonial headdress, would have been at the very most 7 foot in length. So you're literally looking for a legitimate needle in a haystack at that point. But we've also been finding in a lot of other places, over in Siberia, they've been making stunning through using water jet technology, finding a lot of um, very, very strange um, things. And Siberia, that's at certain
We're gonna
times
go
of the
there. We
year.
might as well go. We might as well go Antarctica.
Um,
Admiral Byrd,
yeah.
the Nazis. I mean,
And
and there's been recent scientific research done that they've found that parts of Antarctica used to be a tropical.
and you know what's so interesting? I had a very unique experience. One of my former medical doctors was actually the chief medical director on Antarctica for nearly 20 years. So envision some of the backroom conversations that was had um, about the things that didn't happen there,
Yeah.
as uh, we'll say. Did they happen? Did they not happen? You
Well,
know,
the worst part of it is, especially when we discussing the Admiral Byrd incident,
yeah.
we'll
Where is
never
she?
know.
Where is she?
We'll never know. We'll
Y-
never.
where is she
You mean he?
or he? Um,
We'll never know because that generation's almost gone.
where
Because that was during World War II.
but where has Admiral Byrd since removal from uh office?
He's been removed completely from the public.
Yeah, I have reason to believe that Admiral Byrd has been removed from the living.
Well, yeah, I believe that too. But he's also that age too, so it's one of those. That's what some of the topics we'll have on here because it is urban and folk legends. It's that history that's been lost, and you pointed it out, elegant, when you're talking about the book burning stuff. It's that history. Our history is becoming urban legend and folklore. That's why I want to focus on some of these things. I want to keep it away from the politics as much as possible, but there is a role there. And it
You
goes
know,
back to what I said with the Native Americans. I mean, the Trail of Tears, it happened for a reason.
you
They
know,
didn't want people to know this knowledge. They didn't want to know these secrets that they've been using for power. There's a reason why we've never found Bigfoot. There's a reason why every time they find one of these giant sarcophagus or giant bones, it disappears. And people are hushed up about it. It's one of those things. Like I said, most people can't step outside their boxes, or most people don't realize that all this information out here, all this knowledge, there's truth in all of it. You just got to pick it out, siphon it from the rhetoric, the indoctrination, psychological warfare stuff of it. Pick it out. Talk with people. Talk with your elders. I mean, if you ever get a chance to talk with some Native American elders, listen to their stories. Because their stories have been passed down for generations. Unfortunately, our Native Americans that are true Native, true bloodline, they're almost extinct.
that's what I was looking at every year we have a because I have the distinct privilege of growing up at
I mean, I'm getting close to where I can claim Blackfoot
I
as the
have
years go by, because the percentage of what it means to be acknowledged as having that DNA strand has decreased. I
what
mean, it's like what is it now? 1/3 or 1/4, 1/5, 1/6?
um 1/6 it is the current standard now, I believe. It changed. That used to um be
I hate to say it,
one.
you wonder why they push so hard for
It
to
it
strip
it
people of their
seems
identities.
it changes from administration to administration, and it's very very upsetting, to
Well,
me.
it's not just
But
upsetting; it's the fact they've pretty much well eradicated all the Native Americans.
I grew up, or I not only did I grow up, but I live. One of my residents is on. I am literally, when I say I live in the area of the signing site of the 1825 treaty. I literally mean I live on the site of the 1825, because I am literally 6 blocks, 6 city blocks from the original signing site of the 1825 treaty. There's not many people that can say they know exactly, categorically, where the signing site of maybe the biggest farce, the biggest fuck you to the Native American people of America. And I don't say that lightly. Please don't don't mistake those words. But it is legitimately the biggest fuck you that was ever handed to all of the tribes represented. And where my home sits, I it would be nice if I could just stick a shovel in my backyard. The only problem is I have about 300 miles of fiber optics and gas lines in my backyard. So I can't just stick a shovel in my backyard and find out what history lays in my backyard. It'd be really nice to know what nations camped out on my property in 1825.
See,
I,
that's
I
awesome because I can still do that. But that's the weird thing. It's been well over hundreds of years since the Native Americans settled in the Ohio Valley in Ohio. But anytime a farmer plows his field, you can walk behind them or right after and still pick up arrowheads.
it,
Pick up
it,
arrowheads from various different tribes throughout that most people didn't even realize were in the Ohio Valley.
all right, here's one for you. All you have to do is type in the Battle of Red Mound.
Mm-hmm. Familiar?
I literally am about 35 minutes from when of it wasn't uh it is in the top 10 bloodiest battles that was fought between the the French and the Indians. That's why it's called the Battle of Red Mound.
I
And
mean,
that's not very far from my home. And
it's,
still to this day, every year we're finding full intact arrows and still intact arrowheads after all these years. We're still finding these artifacts. But if you post a photograph of something like that on any social media site, oh man, you got about 50 people pounding on your door and confiscating that and claiming that's historical antiquities. And if you don't relinquish it, oh my God, it's bad.
yeah,
Uh,
because it has the potential to rewrite history.
it's even deeper than that, unfortunately. Um, and my state.
I mean, let's keep it real. That's why they don't talk about the Aztecs and the Incas being all the way up here in the United States. I mean, we're talking up into Montana's, Colorado, Idaho,
They were in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
We know that they were also in Iowa, south central Minnesota, They didn't go like up into the Iron Range. We do know they stopped at the Iron Range for a multitude of reasons. Partially because of uh, tribal uh, fighting that was very vile. Once you get up into the Iron Range of Minnesota, it took a very different turn that the Inca and the Aztec were not prepared for. And unfortunately, those battles happened during this time of year that they just simply were not capable and or ready to be able to endure. And so to that end, you know, are there remains of Inca and Aztec there in the Iron Range? I would say yes, there absolutely is. Will those will it ever be publicly announced? I I highly doubt it.
I mean, it kind of has. Josh Gates gotten into some of it, a little bit unearthed of it, and then we get the mystery of blind fog ranch. And actually tonight there's actually another good one in the. It's actually I think it's on before or after um, Gold Rush, where they found all these gold bars. Then the government took over, came over, claimed the land, which happens a lot in certain areas. They'll
Keep
come
talking.
out.
I gotta grab a cup of tea here.
They'll come over and claim these lands for under protection or whatnot, and it's to hide stuff. I'm not trying to talk politics here, but that's been the common theme with certain areas that are rich in these urban legends and folklores. As you start digging into these things, you find out that, well, either the land had rare natural resources or had some hieroglyphics, and if you actually study where they located the Native Americans, where they gave them their basically detention camps. But this is your federal land. This is yours. This is where you'll stay. It is away from all their spiritual areas. It's funny. Start studying the ley lines where certain things are built intentionally over the ley lines. That's something we'll get into too. I'm talking about that because ley lines play into some of these legends and folklores and myths because it's an energy that's drawn. I think especially when Bree was talking about the mysterious booms we've been hearing reports of for the last 6 years. And some of the key areas, there's some major ley lines going through those areas. Like I said, there's so much out there. It's hard to pinpoint, and it's good to question these things. Have talks. I think get close to another hour mark, but what do you guys want to hear talked about? Leave it in the comments if you made it this far, because I want to talk about this. Tonight was just more of a fun night, just throwing the things that we're eventually going to focus on as an individual topic. There's so much. Really, there is so much. I know I kind of want to mainly focus on the United States and our history, but that doesn't mean that we won't go because, I've got descendants from Europe. I've got descendants from Brazil, Portugal, Germanic tribes. Honestly, my family, other than 13 people, have not married out of the Irish German descent. My uncle, great uncle, he didn't use ancestry. Screw ancestry. He did the old school method, the old paperwork method. dating our ancestry. Yes, John Rutledge is part of our ancestry, but it goes clear back to the Mayflower, and it goes clear back past that. Shit, we found out like 2009 ish, 2010. Shit, we owned it. Our family still had a castle. Couldn't afford to, pay the the money that was owed to reclaim it, but yeah. I mean, I know my coat of arms. I've actually got pictures of my coat of arms, family's coat of arms. I didn't need no give DNA to find out my family's history. We did the research. We went through the paperwork, the books, and we found the journals. I remember growing up. This is another part of urban and folk legends. Family reunions. I loved going to family reunions because I get to hear these stories. Such and such that lives in the upper peninsula of Michigan. Yeah, she's got some skeletons in her closet. She's Blackfoot. And yeah, I got to hear these stories of what it was like when they were growing up, the things they seen, things they experienced, and some of the urban legends that they shared. It's sad to see the concept of family reunions has gone to the wayside, because that was the way families told their stories, passed their knowledge from generation to generation. I miss the family reunions. I miss the stories. I miss sitting around the campfire, telling urban legends, telling ghost stories, telling a personal experience. Man, if I told you some of my paranormal experiences, some of it was downright, should have been downright frightening and terrifying. Just to be honest.
I'm back. Sorry about that. I needed to make some tea.
No, I actually got on a little rant about family reunions. No, seriously. I mean, it's pretty much a dead concept. But man, the urban legends and folk legends I've learned from family reunions.
Yeah,
listen to the old timers share their stories.
Awesome. I miss those.
I mean, yeah, I miss them too. I mean, I remember my grandpa and grandma said there was a family reunion. Let's go. I wanted to go. I really did. And they knew it. They took me places. I remember my best friend Dan. I remember I met his aunt. His dad's like a dad to me. Still is to this day. I remember his aunt one day, we had this vet. He needed to, the story of my life, the people I run into their families are part of American history. The vet, he was a Vietnam vet. Robert E. Lee. And yes, direct descendant of Robert E. Lee, clear down to the actual getting money from the government because of his name, because of his lineage. I mean, obviously, I'm friends with descendants of Andrew Jackson. And, he needed to go to the VA hospital. I mean, him and her boyfriend, those two were best friends. We call them suicide vets. One was diabetic, and they were alcoholics for real. I mean, Robert E. Lee, he loved his scotch. Oh my God, did he love his scotch? He'd give us $500. $200 went for his scotch. The rest was ours.
You get some pretty good scotch for a couple $100.
The scotch he drank, oh my God, it wasn't cheap.
Yeah, that's why I said you could get some pretty fly scotch for.
He's the one that actually got me hooked on scotch, drinking scotch. Yeah. When we were young and dumb, right? But anyway, so we end up having to take him to DC, to the VA hospital. Well, he was one of those. He played the game. He made them everybody because he was in a wheelchair, kind of, sort of. But he played it to where he needed help all the time. He didn't. I seen right through it, and he knew I did. Well, one day he's like, man, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna get this treatment. It's gonna take 2 months. Here's 3 blank checks. At the first of the month, you can cash them for anywhere up to $6,000. He goes, but I expect you to be back here in 2 months to pick me up. Needless to say, I wasn't back here in 2 months. I was on my way somewhere else for a very long vacation. But I ended up having to deal with that because I had 3 blank checks with General E. Lee. And, well, where's he at? VA hospital. That's where I dropped him off at. Well, his family, he doesn't want nothing to do with his family because all they want him for is his money. And he told me that. But we end up going from there to Tennessee. Out around, what's the name of the place? McMinnville. So, Rock Island, where the falls are, where they shot the Rocky scene.
Yep.
Or was it Rocky? I think it was Rocky. But, that area. Oh, man, I had a blast. I was all over the place. I was going into the mountains, into the valleys, the hollers, learning things, seeing things, hearing their folklore and stuff. Then I came back, man. I'm like, man, I don't want to be here. So I'm like, get on the phone, call Dan. Hey, come pick me up. He's like, man, I don't got a job. I'm broke. Man, I'll pay you for gas. We'll get something to eat. Come pick me up. He's like, you got money? I'm like, I got money. He's like, well, how much? Well, I don't want to say over the phone. I got money. Come pick me up. As soon as he picked me up, man, I don't care. Where do you want to go? Let's go on vacation. He goes, well, I've never been to the ocean. My first trip to North Carolina. Out to Moorhead. We'll do that again.
Yeah.
Then we end up in Tennessee, and I'm taking him places where he doesn't even know. I'm taking him to places where he's got family buried. And he's like, man, how do you know? I'm like, he's like, how do you know where all these places? Your aunt showed me. I tagged along with your aunt. We went everywhere. Met most of your family. I got around, but when I got around, I'd always find myself hanging around with the older people, listening to their stories. That's how I knew where so much stuff was. I remember my grandpa and grandma take me all over Michigan, all over Ohio to visit the old family grave sites, hearing the stories, the history. I miss family reunions. I really do. That's
Michigan is another one of those.
Oh my God, Michigan's loaded.
It isn't so much that yes, the lower has a lot of unspoken history, but the upper peninsula.
Oh yeah.
It's I obviously because I'm closer and it's easier access to go to the upper than it is the lower for me.
Yeah, I got to go completely through the lower to get to the upper.
It's for me. It's easier to go.
And I hate going across the Bacchanal Bridge.
No, it's go across there when there's a 40 or 50 mile an hour wind, and that'll
really, they're done that.
That'll really test your driving ability. Let's just go there. But you want to talk about some legitimate folklore. There's documented historical, or there's documented accounts by the Coast Guard of vessels showing up on their ALS. Documented accounts of ships showing up on ALS.
Yes, that's what it's called. The Bridgewater Triangle.
That there is no way that those ships would have even come close to having the ALS technology. Yet they're showing up on ALS and from shore and even in the fog, and yet they're still showing up just as uh, big as day, and they're there for 30 seconds and then they're gone. And these aren't small ships. These are very, very big, big ships. That there is no way that these ships could or would have had this technology, considering that some of these ships are more than 200 years old. That their final resting spot it is still unknown, um, by because of the depth of Lake Michigan, and yet they're there for a moment, and then they're gone. So you want to talk about urban myth and legend? It's go to the UP, talk to some of the lighthouse people that work those lighthouses. Some of those people will tell you things that if you didn't believe in the term ghost ship, they'll tell you things that'll make you go sheet white
Yeah,
in a heartbeat.
I'm pretty sure when it's dealing with the Great Lakes, the Bermuda Triangle effect, I'm pretty sure they call it the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yes, that is the correct term. Um,
And it's a very, very well documented phenomenon.
it is.
I mean, just like me. I mean, I love where I live because, well, I don't. I'd love to get fucking far away from Ohio and never come back, but that's beside the point. But it's awesome because I mean, I have the Appalachians right, drive across the state, get into West Virginia. The Appalachian Trail runs parallel to Ohio. There's so much. I mean, oh my God, there's so much folklore just to deal with the Appalachian chain. I mean, you get Germanic folklore, you get, I mean, so much. I mean, and to realize that the Appalachians is still hasn't been fully not investigated. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's not been mapped. It's not been 100% mapped.
It hasn't. There's still places in the Appalachians that we know nothing about. And back to the thing. There's a reason why we come down the West Virginia Pike. That whole area is pretty much mountains, and anybody's been there, you know the signs. You know there's certain. You definitely don't want to go exploring anywhere where those signs are. All the way into the Black Forest. And the Black Forest is, oh my God, a whole nother fucking level of. We can go for days, years on end on the urban legend and folklore. That's just what I love about this. There's so much just here in our own backyard that we can discuss and talk about. And it doesn't have to go all the way into paranormal. Definitely doesn't have to go into politics, but politics does play its ugly role in these areas. I mean, MK Ultra, using the universal soldiers that they tried to create constantly. That's not myth. It's not legend. It's not folklore. It's actually fact. But they try to say, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory. That's just an urban legend." It was. Then decades go by, then documentation comes out. Look at all the documentation on this. Of psychics that they've used. It's
That's not a myth.
Nope, it's been released. The classified documents have been released on that stuff. That's the things we want to explore. I mean, like I said, it's going to be as you can see, it's a hodgepodge of everything. There's a bunch of stuff I missed. I mean, I didn't even talk about vampires yet. And that is, and every culture has their little vampire lore throughout the whole world. And truthfully, everybody's a vampire to some degree. It's just not. It's not the idea of drinking blood. That's the myth. That's the legend. That's the folklore. The actual truth is energy.
And that's
Psychic
where
vampires is what it's called.
I was just gonna say there's a difference between the different types of that subset, and that's what and unfortunately, as we've we're talking about in the green room a few nights ago, that level of chaos comes from that we're seeing more often than not that the level of psy-vampirism has become so much higher today than it has in the last 100 years.
Oh yeah,
and it's not the level that people understand. It has gotten so much farther more dangerous than people understand. And the levity, and I really haven't really sat back and thought about it all that.
Oh, you don't want to. It's depressing.
No,
it's not depressing. It's just downright scary.
Well, because of my knowledge of everything, and I've shared with you in the back room a lot of the things that have been going on with me, and some of the conversation that I had regarding somebody else.
Yeah. Well, you also heard like I told you the other night when I was doing a podcast, I had.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even call it what is it? EVP?
Yep.
I wouldn't even call it that because it was audible through my headphones, clear as day.
Yeah.
Where I actually acknowledged it on a live stream. Like, what was it? They were literally talking to Mike, which after that, me and somebody had another discussion in the back room, and yeah, that made me and his conversations when we started talking about, yeah, that makes sense. But there's a lot of stuff that we want to talk about and share because it is important. It's not even a distraction because some of it's not myth and legend.
No, it's not. No, it absolutely isn't.
And actually, let me put it this way. Behind every myth and legend, there is truth. The myth and legend is usually created to disguise the truth. It's the boogeyman story. Or why they'd carve out pumpkins and put candles in them. It's not to scare the children, it's to protect the children, so to speak, but it's to protect the ugly truths. Sometimes it's used to disguise what's really going on that they don't want people to know, which is like the Native American conversations we've had throughout the night. That's my belief why they did what they did.
Whoa, that was weird.
But I felt that.
There was an.
I'm still feeling that.
That was weird. I got it on my end. You actually red lighted my board.
No, that wasn't me.
Something came through.
Oh yeah, something came through, and it's still here.
And it red lighted my board, and I don't have phantom power turned on my board, and it red lighted my board. That was weird. Just for I put that, the reason why I mentioned it, people, for whoever catches this at a later point, I'm making this as a data point as to, so that we can go back and actually um, fact check the situation as to, is this equipment or
No, that was not equipment.
no, it was not. No,
I can tell you from my own personal experience what I just felt and still kind of feeling.
no, you
Yeah,
actually,
no, that was spine tingling and still is.
I have 4 cats whose ears are flat back. And so, yeah. And,
That's yeah.
and 3 of the cats are black.
And yeah. And that's something. That's the reason. Another reason why I want to talk about some of this stuff, because yeah, it's there. You know, some people I mean, there's a bunch of paranormal shows out there, and some of them are just jokes. The last one I watched, well, what's her name, Aisha or Akisha, something like that. Oh my God, she just needs to stick to singing.
You know, I hate, you went there, so I'm gonna go there. You know,
Oh, just the heads up, everybody. I'll extend this for a little bit longer, but we're reaching that hour mark, and the stream's gonna drop out. Don't go nowhere. If anything, I'll just break this down into 3 segments since I'm recording it at each hour mark. But it is going to drop here in probably about 3 or 4 minutes, 5 minutes at the most.
you
We'll
know,
be right back.
I'm reminded. You know, you're talking about paranormal shows. I'm reminded every time somebody mentions paranormal shows, I always get a chuckle about um that British paranormal group. You know which one?
The
You
Truth
bet.
Seekers?
No, it was uh haunted something or other. And it was uh
Is it the one that Taps created?
no, it had Yvette Fielding, and it was an all British cast.
Okay, no, never mind.
It's been gone like 10 years now, but um, it was like haunted UK or some most haunted UK or something like that. It was really kind of a spinoff of uh uh GHI. For lack of a better word, it was kind of a spinoff. Um, but there was the the funny part was allegedly they were, I think, up in Scotland, and there was a strange sound that almost sounded like a fart, and Yvette Fielding was the female TV host, and she was like, "Oh my God, something! It smells like, or sounded like something farted," and she's like, "Oh yeah, something definitely farted," and this was broadcasted live from Britain, and it's like, "Oh my God." It was hilarious as hell, and the show only lasted like another 2 or 3 weeks after that, and it was gone. But yeah, I think it had to do with Taps International family, but it was just hilarious as shit, you know. Um,
But you know, it's interesting. Even some of the stuff that they use today, especially like the lighting to pick up the stuff. That's old Druidic stuff, because the Druids are notorious for their blue lights or black lights.
yep.
For the ultraviolet spectrum. So, you know, they're still taking their stuff from myth, legend, and lore. Like I said, there is some truth. There's reasons why, you know, the Druids use those black lights or blue lights, whatever you want to call them, because it was in that UV spectrum. And they're the ones that actually created black lights that we know of.
It was their understanding of technology of the time as to why we have what we enjoy as full spectrum photography.
Right. Well, Nikola Tesla. We wouldn't have EVP, the understanding of EVPs, if it wasn't for Nikola Tesla. I mean, you want to talk about some urban legend and folklore surrounding him.
We wouldn't understand a lot of stuff if it wasn't for him. Let's just be real.
I mean, there's some documentation out there. He was, receiving communications through EVPs, in a sense, through the Tesla machine, the Tesla coils. I mean, like I said, it's everywhere. We don't even, well, there's a reason why, and we're not going to go there. It's not nothing to do with politics. Well, yeah, a lot of things with Tesla end up dealing with politics, but it's also dealing with, belief systems. Even though it's more acceptable today, talking and discussing things paranormal and discussing urban and myth legends, and people aren't going to get too offended by it, and it's not going to hurt their spiritual beliefs. There is a point where I'm not going to cross that line of what needs to be over on KOTR and not over here. But like I said, and I do plan on doing some things talking about Tesla. I mean, Aleister Crowley, our government used him.
Streaming is on.
Clear down to our NASA program, one of our top scientists that ended up somehow mysteriously getting blown up in his own house.
Yeah, that's...
Well, we don't want to talk about Patterson?
Yeah, he's an interesting...
Well, actually, got to be careful with that one, because if we start delving there, well, you also get into the occult, mixing with science. Then you get the black magician himself, the creator of Scientology. And that's what certain individuals, they'll come after you for saying that. Me and that group's already had a little run-in about that. And
they don't like me.
But that's what he was called, Ron Ed Hubbard. But the Patterson stuff, oh my God. Babylon Rising. The shit he did out in California. The shit he did for, was it NASA? Yeah, it was NASA. I mean, yeah, he was a protege of Crowley.
Well,
clear down to they exchanged philosophies and ideas.
Well, Patterson himself, he's a very interesting individual.
What he was doing with that one Babylon project is downright scary.
But there's a couple of since we're in this topic and in this genre, when you mention the name Patterson, you have to be specific, because most people, you mention the name Patterson, they automatically are going to be thinking Patterson Gimlin.
Yeah, no.
And so you have to be very specific. And both Pattersons, were prior to their exposure of the things that they were doing and the things that they uncovered and were released, and life thereafter. um, you really have to examine everything with an extreme microscope. Um, you know, everybody likes to make reference to Patterson of the Patterson Gimlet, but not many will want to talk about Gimlin, who is actually the photographer. Hey, I have a crisis I have to deal with here. Can we wrap this up, dude? I have a crisis I have to go deal with.
Yeah, we can. Like I said, I didn't really want to go much past 3 hours. You go ahead and say what you need to say to wrap up now. Close it out.
Um, a lot of people they don't want to look at what either Patterson or Gimlin did prior to their documentation of the so-called Bigfoot. They don't want to uh, look at where those guys were at um, and what they were doing prior um, to their quote unquote exposure um, and what brought them to prominence and what led them after. Um, because they they both their demise was very strange. Now the other Patterson, um, again, very very strange. You know, sorry, I'm multitasking, kind of dealing with a crisis here too. So, but let's revisit this. Are you going to be in a place next week that you're going to be able to pick this up?
I will be, but I I'll be I get the U-Haul Friday, moving everything, so more than likely, I don't know, I'll be able to swing a podcast Saturday night.
Let's
Definitely not Friday. Like I said, next week is done. Come the 8th is done because the internet will be off by the 8th
right.
here. So,
well, maybe because I'm going to be out the rest of the weekend. I'm going to be gone. The rest of the weekend. Um, so let's we need to pick up back up on Patterson. That is we really need uh to deal with this on its own topic alone, I think.
yeah, this should. Yeah, I agree. This should be a separate topic. But it just goes to show there's just so much out there that I don't think people realize or even understand.
I honestly do believe that Patterson, both actually, they deserve their own. To be fair, uh, they both need their own space and um, their own bandwidth, I guess you could say. But I'm going to be out, like I said, the rest of the weekend. And I have a crisis that I have to go deal with. Um, so let's pick up on Patterson, on the Patterson topic in and of itself.
Agreed.
And table this till then. I need to go deal with this like post hastily here. So, folks, y'all know where to find me. Um, y'all take care. God bless. Till we meet again. Y'all be safe. I'm out of here.
Like I said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, something's gonna be different. It's maybe once, twice a month, or we might make set aside a weekend thing for this, because I do enjoy talking about these things just as much as I enjoy talking about the main content on that we talk about on Sons and Daughters of Liberty. But I want something that's fun, that gets into stuff different from the political stuff. I just want something fun, and to me, this is fun. I know it's not going to appeal to most of my audience. That's fine. There's another audience out there this will appeal to. That's cool. It allows me to bridge a gap and bring in a different audience that might not particularly care for some of the other stuff that's on here, but it'll open up to them who want to go at least check it out. So it's a benefit and it's a plus for this channel. And quite frankly, we need positive things to talk about. We need things that's going to make our minds work to question things. And it'll open the door to have serious talks. I mean, like I said, science is very much part of this. The medical field is very much a part of some of these legends and folklore. I mean, like we discussed with the mask, how Bree brought up how the plague masks were used. There's so much, especially the symbology and stuff of the mask. What masks have been used throughout cultures and centuries. It opens up a whole field of topics, fun topics that we can talk, debate, excuse me, probably argue about. Like me, I have my own perspective on things when it comes like UFOs, Bigfoot, and I had my own personal experience with the UFO, but it never interested me. It wasn't, I don't know. Maybe that's the skeptic in me when it comes to that area of the field. And I know plenty of people that's their field. That's what they love to do. And they'll talk your ear off about it. They have good, interesting points. It's just not my thing. Just like when we mentioned Anunnaki and Anunnaki. The Anunnaki thing is not my field. To me, I think it's all the same thing. As you could tell from my discussions with Bigfoot, Nephilim, race of giants, all being, hey, I think that's, they're the descendants or Nephilim still walking this earth today. And there's always the other reason why they want your DNA. They want that specific set of people that have that one specific type of DNA, which I personally believe that specific type that they look for is another descendant of the of the Nephilim. But it's all things that just make you think and question. I mean, when we're in this genre here, it's all up for debate. It's all up for question. We all have some of us have tons of personal experiences. Like, just had one live with you guys and still feeling the after effects. I'm not quite sure what that was all about, but it definitely got my attention. Definitely got Bree's attention. Which was kind of impromptu, but it's not, because, I mean, we're staring at a black mirror. That's what your TVs, your cell phones, your tablets, that's what they are. They're black mirrors. They're scrying mirrors. And look what you're scrying upon. And we will eventually get down on that road too. It's not going to be right away because I want to get people just to have fun first before we delve into some of those areas. I want this to be a fun experience for all of you. I want you guys to enjoy it much as I enjoy talking about it. And I want you to be able to think and question things, because that's what this channel, Sons and Daughters of Liberty, is all about, to make you think and question things. Yes, I try to back a lot of stuff with history. But I want to make sure always that it's fun, because this is what I want this to be, fun. And who knows, maybe it's not going to happen anytime soon. And like I said, I'm 50-50 on the, if I want to even go back into the field of doing paranormal research and investigations again. It's always that calling's always there to draw me there. You know, I have to, you know, I got some equipment. I have to get some more, re-update some of the equipment. There's some stuff out there that I'm curious and trying out, and there's old stuff that's been passed down throughout history that I want to try. And we'll save that for special occasions, because like I said, I want to have fun with this. And when you get down that fork in the path, yeah, there's a thrill in it, but there's a bunch of consequences that come with it. And I've experienced those consequences in my life. Not want to revisit those. And that's the danger you take when you start going into that field, where I can just sit here and talk about it all I want, and now apparently you can't even do that. What happened about 15-20 minutes ago. But those are fun things, and I want to keep it fun. And like I said, nothing is off the table. If there's something you guys want me to talk about, leave it in the comments. Let me know. If it's something I don't know, more than likely I've got friends or know people out there that do, and I might be able to get them to come in and join in. Of course, then again, we know how hard it is for me to get people to come in. But I do know people that do, that aren't affiliated with government entities and sign non-disclosure issues, because that is some of the issues. Some of my friends that know these things, they can't publicly talk about it, and I respect that. I don't like it, but I respect it, because I think that's the biggest problem in our world today, is the secrets. Secrets do nothing but destroy, because it's forbidden information. They think it's forbidden from us. Why don't you want us to know that information? What makes you so fearful of us having that information? And that's why we're going to be talking about these things. There's no right or wrong answers, especially in these topics. It's just experiences, theories, some based on historical facts. It's just a hodgepodge of knowledge that I've acquired over my 45 years of existence. And I'm going to be sharing with you. So I do hope you guys enjoyed. I did not mean to go this long. I thought, we'll just go for an hour, maybe 2 at the max, but we're reaching the 2.5 hour mark. But we talked about so much. I guess this should have been the introduction of urban legends, or urban and folk legends. I'm going to change the title of this thing. Because I always call it wrong. I've been doing it since I created it. And this is old, believe it or not. This is from my KOTR days, from my days on Ning websites, the days I actually wrote magazines, where this was created for, which were a magazine. Which I haven't written that particular magazine in almost, it's 2023, 10 years now since we last published the last issue. Nope, the last issue was published in June of 2012, 2013, somewhere-ish there. Yes, I'm a jack of all trades. I even actually did one publication of a magazine for Sons and Daughters of Liberty. But I stuck to my guns on that one. If I wasn't going to get people, I couldn't get people involved to help and contribute, I wasn't going to sit there and do it by myself. And that's actually what happened to KOTR's magazine. It came down to just two of us. And I mean, yeah. I don't know if you want to call it a magazine. It was a book each month. I mean, it was 200 pages of everything. And I mean everything. There was conspiracy theories. There was prepping stuff in there. Everything was in there. And now that's always what I've envisioned. Being able to do, just have one channel where I can have everything. All my knowledge and information. But I learned you can't do that. Because certain people don't want to hear that side of things. And if you have them both, you're scared. People just tune out, and I don't know. It's one of those things I battle myself with, going back and forth. Well, can't see why I can't have KOTR and Sons and Daughters and merge them, but I know I can't because it don't work, and it's a shame because it worked as a magazine. I mean, some of my magazines, they've gotten 10,000s of reads, which is amazing, considering we were just using Scribd and eSu. We started off on Scribd, and Scribd started changing things, and we went to eSu, which had still to this day has an awesome format for anybody who wants to create their own magazines or books. The stuff you can do now on that with creating a magazine is amazing. You know, that's actually one thing. If I would ever go back to it, I would probably pay to play, because you pay for your more of a premium style. I can embed videos in a magazine. Think about that. But I mean, I'd have to get paid to do that. And I have that issue, especially with Sons and Daughters of Liberty. I won't do anything. That's why I don't sell merch. Even though it's been tempting. The artist in me, I had people ask me, man, I love your graphics. I love the stuff that Clay and Brie mentioned. She loves the graphics on this. I probably could make some good money at it. But then, if I could find a way around it to do it to where I wouldn't have to worry about YouTube coming at saying, well, if you're going to have advertised merch, then we're going to control your content. You can't be talking about these things. That's why I don't do it. I don't want nobody, no advertiser, nobody to say, because I'm paying for a service or I'm using a service, and give them control of what I can say, because that's what they do. That's why 90% of the people that have issues on YouTube is because they're monetized. I mean, some of the stuff I was talking about tonight, I wouldn't be allowed to talk about if I was monetized. That's why I've never done it. You know, and it's hard, especially now that I'm not working. I don't know. It's something I got to think about and sit down and talk with a couple people about. Because Sons and Daughters of Liberty wasn't just created by me. You know, yes, I am listed as the creator, the owner, all those colorful labels for the ego. But no, me and a few friends sat down and we talked about it. You know, and these certain friends are, you know, one's related as descendants of Andrew Jackson. And this is what we agreed upon for this format. And I don't want to get away from that without, even though it's mine, all intellectual rights to this is mine. I don't want to get away from that. If we decide it, maybe we will. Maybe we'll find a way to be able to do it. Do some of that stuff so you can get some of the artwork and stuff. And keep so it's not here and it's not controlled by anybody else. But it's just too much. I've seen it with the Patreons. I've seen it PayPal. Teespring's done it. So, honestly, I would do better. But if I could get a loan for that much to get the printing presses and stuff, to be able to make my own t-shirts and stuff, I would do better that way. And that's just not affordable. So something I can't afford. And I've got beside myself, I've got 3 other artists that are amazing. But some of this artwork they've collaborated on. And some of them they've done. Most of it's mine, but it's something I'll think about. I'll think about as I explore this new thing that I'm bringing to you guys with urban and folk legends. It's been a fun night. I've enjoyed myself. I've had most fun I've had doing a podcast in a while, honestly. And that should tell you something. It is taxing when you're dealing with the political spectrum. Even though it rears its ugly head, even in this one. But I've had more fun doing this. It's been more enlightening, more uplifting, and I'm sorry for those that don't like it. You can unsubscribe from me, or you just don't watch it when I do these. This isn't going anywhere. It's staying over here on Sons and Daughters of Liberty. And I haven't done nothing with KOTR in years, so. This is every bit a part of me as being a direct descendant of John Rutledge and the Constitution and all the political side of me. So, like I said, hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you think, what you want to hear talked about. I mean, we threw around a bunch of stuff, and there's just so much more we didn't even mention. So, if you want a topic, leave a comment. I'll see what we can do. No promises on next week. Like I said, originally I only planned on doing this once a week, but now I think this might become like a weekend, a Saturday night thing. Or once I get situated, a Friday night thing. Hopefully I'm back working by the end of the month. I got a bunch of resumes out, applications put in already. I'll have a bunch more once I get back to my parents' house and back in Ohio, where it's a 2-hour drive. With that said, you guys enjoy your weekend. You guys have a beautiful night. Take a break from things. Take the break from the politics for you guys that focus on that. Find something enjoyable to do this weekend and have fun. I know I had a blast tonight. I've been wanting to do this for a while now, honestly. Like I said, it's labeled the number 2 episode because it technically is. I did one a couple years ago trying to introduce it, and it didn't seem right at the time. Now it does seem right. Now I'm feeling it, so. And that's how I do my podcast anyway. What I'm feeling drawn to talk about and do, so. I'm happy I'm been drawn back to this. I hope you guys are happy with the content that comes. And let me know what you think. You guys have a good night. I need to stop rambling because this ain't rambling to the chaotic minds.